Welcome to Entrepreneur Mindset Reset, the podcast for entrepreneurs who want to learn from fellow business owners how to decrease the chaos and increase their sense of fulfillment while becoming more profitable. I'm your host, Tracy Trapesky. I'm an executive coach and consultant and mindset mastery expert. I'm also mom to two amazing teenagers and a menagerie of adopted furry family members. In each episode, we explore challenges, opportunities, and actionable tips to help you move your business forward while staying true to your vision. You'll hear from me and my guests how we've tackled some of the pitfalls and unexpected surprises that entrepreneurship delivers. We're the real deal, and we're here to inspire and encourage you. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in today for a new episode. It's your host, Tracy, and I am so excited to share today's episode with you. Before we dive in, I'd like to remind you that your reviews and ratings help other entrepreneurs like you and me find us to partake in these free resources, connection, and valuable business mindset insights. So please do take a few minutes to leave your review on Apple to support us in our growth and to help our fellow entrepreneurs find our amazing guests' stories. As you know, the entrepreneur's journey can feel lonesome and isolating. I am on a mission to help entrepreneurs break through the isolation and achieve the success and fulfillment they've always dreamed of. I do this in two ways, both through my business and through this podcast. In my business, I've recently committed to dramatically narrowing my niche, which has been both scary as hell and extremely rewarding. It's making my life and business easier and has reignited my passion and excitement for what I do. So stay tuned for an upcoming solo episode where I'll share this transition, the mindset I needed to embrace, and how I've worked through the fear so I too can achieve the success and fulfillment I crave. For those who may be a little impatient maybe in finding out, I'll share a little sneak peek and tell you that over the years, many physicians, practitioners, and psychologists who own their practices have come to me to help them tackle the chaos and frustration of owning their business and to free up their time so they can enjoy the fruits of their labor while still serving their patients with the utmost care and professionalism. These amazing humans all have one thing in common. They're all puzzle solvers of some kind and want to help their patients get to the root cause of what ails them so they can heal and in turn live their most fulfilled, embodied life. I'd say most entrepreneurs have that in common to some extent. We see a gap in the market and we passionately fill it. If you are what we call an INRP, a practitioner of integrative, naturopathic, or regenerative medicine, or a psychologist who's struggling to strike a balance between being the everything person in your practice and you'd like to take back your time, I invite you to join us on Monday, February 21st for a private roundtable discussion on how to master time leadership as owner and provider. You can learn more and register at tracytrapesky.com/medical-practices. There is a clickable link in the show notes. Okay. Let's talk about our guest today. It is with so much pleasure that I get to share with you the energetic and refreshingly honest Raquel Borras of RAQVISION and host of YouTube channel Raq the Boat. She's also a mental health advocate. Raquel shares with us how her childhood shaped her view of the world and how she relates with and can draw out the best in children. RAQVISION is the youth 17 and under social network, a mindful and supportive playground. With a background in branding and marketing, Raquel set out to build a social platform that serves as a disruptor to social media, which is often toxic and isolating to kids and teenagers. And I would say really to all of us. Since she is really great at branding, she has managed in just 1 year to build a platform with no third-party connections where children can feel safe, seen, and heard. She was seeing how much kids have been craving community, particularly with the isolation of the pandemic lockdowns, and wanted to do something about it. Again, this is an example of seeing a gap in the market and filling it, passionately filling it. One thing that they encourage at RAQVISION is what they call a no-so 24, a social media, music, TV, and mobile devices cleanse for 24 hours as a means to reset and tune into themselves and those they love. I think we could all use a No So 24, don't you think? I love the story Raquel shares about a 15-year-old who reached out to her on LinkedIn to tell her how inspired she was after seeing a sweaty armpit photo, meaning not perfect, no filters, and definitely not something one would choose to post in our highly curated social media times. It was just a photo of a young woman who had danced the night away and had a blast with her friends. I freaking love this story, and I'm sure you will too. Raquel's dedication to providing a safe space and a voice to young people is impressive, and her passion and enthusiasm are palpable. I want to also highlight her refreshing honesty and how allowing the space for this platform to evolve into her ideal vision means that she's choosing to work a salaried day job to both finance RAQVISION and to maintain her living expenses. The truth is, there are a lot of people on social media making it look easy. And for many of us, that triggers some serious, not good enough thoughts, when in reality, starting a new venture can be very difficult and it definitely requires funding. How we all choose to manifest that funding will be different, and there's no shame in that. Give this episode a listen and enjoy. I find myself reflecting on our conversation a lot, and I'm sure you will too. So grab a beverage or a snack and settle in to listen to Raquel and her amazing journey. Hey, Raquel, it's so great to have you on the show. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you, Tracy.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. We always have these great conversations. Like we're like all over the map, and then we come back with great nuggets of wisdom and insights. So I'm excited to share that. But before we dive in, let us know where you are located right now.
I'm in Northern Virginia. So I'm just outside of Washington, D.C. in the suburbs.
Awesome.
Yes.
I know where you are. I don't know where you live, but I know what town you live in. I know that area well. Yeah, it's very pretty there. Yes. Getting busy, getting like exploding growth wise, right?
Yes, it's crazy. A lot of it is the IT, all the data centers. That's the thing in this area. So a lot of buildings with nothing but computers.
Right?
It's really sexy.
It's super sexy. Yeah, the tech corridor. The tech corridor is so hot.
Yeah.
It's where all the cool kids are.
Exactly.
Oh, yes. As a DC transplant, I actually lived kind of in that general direction for a while in the tech corridor. And it's, it's a great place to live. It really is. It's a good place to live.
It is a great place to raise your kids, because the public school system is really good. It is a little nuts right now. I'll admit that. But as far as, they say that it takes a village. It's nice because it is kind of like a village here helping each other out. Because everybody knows everybody and small town. So that part I like it, because I did not grow up that way at all. My kids' upbringing is completely opposite of my upbringing. Yeah.
Nice. That sounds like it was very intentional.
Yes, it was very intentional. Mine wasn't. Mine was kind of all over the place.
I think that might be a little bit of a generational thing. It's broad strokes, but
yeah. Plus my mom, she's Mexican. And she grew up in Mexico, everything. My dad is the one that essentially drew her to the States, because my dad was in medical school in Mexico, met her there. And so then she came and moved out here. And she was very kind of anti wanting to assimilate into the American culture. So as kids, we essentially kind of suffered a little bit, because our mom wanted to do the opposite of what everybody was doing. So that, yeah. And here with my kids, I'm totally like the Americana lifestyle, with the sports and and all the events and the PTA and doing everything that my mom didn't do. So that's an interesting thing as a parent, when you're trying to do the opposite of what your own parent did with you.
Right. Well, there's a lot of things that we, recognize that maybe we want to do differently. And if we can, then we do the best we can. Right.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at with that.
Well, and I feel like we're kind of diving into the middle when I ask this question, so you can back it up and move it whatever direction you want. But do you feel like that upbringing and then becoming very intentional about giving your kids a different experience informs what you're doing now?
Yes. It definitely does. Being that I never really felt like I had a voice as a kid. You know, my mom was very much like, you need to wear this, or you need to have your hair done this way. Like my mom used to do my hair, and I used to wear dresses and saddle shoes and match perfectly. Even she would put like a little bow in my hair that would match my dress. And I'll never forget, it was up until 4th grade that she was doing that. And I remember going to school. I went to a Jewish private school. It was my first time. So first day of 4th grade, and I walk in with a dress all dolled up, and boy, did I get made fun of, you know, and I just remember thinking, I guess this isn't what, you know, I looked around, I saw the other girls, and I thought, okay, this is just not, I don't fit in. And yeah, being made fun of. I remember going home and being like, yeah, Mom, you're going to take me shopping and we're going to go buy pants. And then I chopped my hair off into a bob. Like I was just like, none of this, but it's because my mom pretty much like wanted me to have this certain image. And so I just felt like I had to kind of follow what she said. And now growing up in that environment and then having my kids, and then now speaking to kids, it's all about giving them a voice and having them be heard. Yeah. So that's kind of like a lot of it reverts back to my childhood. And I don't really talk about that. Like when people ask me like, oh, your youth empowerment and you talk to kids, I don't think I've really shared much of why I do this. It's not just because I'm a parent of a 20 and 17-year-old. It's because I myself still have trauma from all of that. So it's something that, I've experienced it.
You know, somebody that you and I both know, Dr. Cameron Caswell, for people who want to look her up, the the teen translator. She says something really powerful, which is that, you know, teenagers and adolescents feel misunderstood because they are. Yeah. And the adults in their lives are missing opportunities to really listen and to really get to know them and to really understand. And, you know, I think all of our parents did the best they could with the tools that they had. And we can look back and say, boy, was your mom missing it, right? And boy, were my parents missing whatever, you know, like she wasn't seeing it. And I'm sure she was probably doing a lot of things similar to why you were intentionally raised your kids this way, that she probably had a very clear and maybe very fixed idea of what it meant to raise, probably in particular, a daughter.
Yeah.
You know, I have a little bit of experience in having lived in Mexico, and my children's father grew up in Mexico, a little bit different. They're like English Mexicans. So it's kind of a different thing, but there's still that societal pressure of being a certain way, and that girls especially are meant to be, you know, very nicely packaged.
Well, even marriage too. When I told her that I wanted to get divorced, she like flipped out, right? Because she was a housewife, and she, you know, was the same thing as a Latina woman, you cook, you clean, but she didn't. We had a nanny. So she even was like super spoiled. But either way, I'll never forget when I finally got divorced. We were out one night. She was visiting me. We were at a restaurant, and she made a comment where she said, you know, Raquel, she's like, I never knew this about you. Like, you're so sensual and you have like a sexual side to you. Like she was just kind of shocked and thought like I was like a completely different person. And I turned to her, I said, Mom, I've always been this way. It's just it was always suppressed and repressed and like all of those things. Like I felt like I couldn't be that person in my marriage or just in life, just in general. And she was like, I like you so much better as a divorcee, because she felt like I was finally stepping into who I was. And so it was really kind of crazy to hear it coming from her, because I was like, well, same thing with my dad. Like they ended up divorced, and she really wasn't who she could be until she was divorced. And now she's been single for years, and she does, you know, she's like a completely different person. But it's like, it's not really the different person. It's just finally being able to be who you were always meant to be.
Yes.
That's what I say. I'm like, I'm not different. I'm just finally who I am. Like,
yeah. You took off your masks. Yeah.
Yeah. So all of those things. And once again, like that's what I want our kids, our youth to kind of also understand, that like so many of them are repressing who they are, suppressing it because they're being labeled by their parents or by outside sources, kind of like, oh, you're this, you're that, you're ADHD, or you're quiet, or you're shy, And then automatically you're molding these kids into something that they might not be. And so that's like really dangerous too, that if we continue to do that, we have to allow our kids to step into who they are. Yeah, obviously with some guidance, you don't want it to just be like, hey, do whatever you want, be whoever you want to be, and without any kind of like, boundaries or respect there. Obviously there has to be that fine line, but at the same time, like, I think right now with social media and everything, it's become really bad, where they really feel like they're supposed to be something that they're not, because everybody else is like, especially with young women, they see all these images of these perfect, curated, filtered, edited pictures. And then suddenly they think, oh gosh, my life isn't like that, or I don't look like that. There must be something wrong with me. And then all of those things. And that's where it gets dangerous.
Yeah. So you have started something new. You started this just before the pandemic lockdowns, right? You started working, or you've kind of started two things. So tell us what you're doing now. I think that'll be helpful. You've got a couple things going, but specifically with young people. Yeah.
So I'll just rewind just to last year in January. Okay. I left the corporate world to start my own personal branding, like consulting business. And then the pandemic hit. And, obviously, like anybody else, a lot of us had to kind of re-navigate where we were going. And I just naturally started becoming a guest on podcasts and live streams, talking about mental health and personal branding, just because I had shared my story about mental health on LinkedIn specifically. And just one day it came to me, okay, you know what? If I'm going to have a podcast, or if I'm going to do a show, I want it to be with our youth, because that's where I felt there was a huge need, was to talk to our kids. Because, my kids are 20 and 17. They already had been dealing with a lot because of social media. Suicide is on the rise. And then the pandemic adds a whole nother layer to isolation and not being able to socialize with your friends. So I realized, okay, gosh, I can only imagine what they're feeling. And I want to know what they're feeling. Like, I want to hear it from them. I felt like nobody was asking them how they felt, because I think what was happening too is in the households, a lot of the parents were so stressed out and so concerned, like, first of all, how they're going to pay the bills, keep the roof over their head, put food on the table. How are they going to homeschool? So they get so self-absorbed. And it's not like they're purposely trying to be selfish. It's just naturally, I think that's what was happening. Mm-hmm. That they weren't really asking their kids how they were feeling. They were more of like, I feel like shit, excuse my language, like,
no problem.
How am I going to deal with this? Like, my own mental health is kind of wavering. And, but yeah, I don't feel like anybody was really focusing on the kids. And so that's where I decided I am really good with kids. I've always loved kids. I always wanted to, be a teacher. I worked with the school system when I first moved out here with kids with learning disabilities. I was a young mom, all of those things where I was thought, okay, you know what? Like, I feel like I have a gift with talking to kids. Did I know if it was going to go well or not? No, it was one of those things where I'm just going to start a YouTube channel and talking to kids and just having it be super candid. Like, that's the whole point. I didn't want it to be produced. I wanted to be very raw in the moment. And it turned into something so magical. I feel, it's almost a year later. In November, it'll be my 1 year of having the show. And I've already had 57 conversations. Okay. Yeah, I know. And I just realized, like, this is it. Like, this is what I'm meant to do. And being someone that is really good at branding, I've managed to kind of put myself out there in a great way as a brand, because I know what I'm doing in that regard. Where I think a lot of people will struggle with that. Like, they have a business, they have all this stuff, but they don't know how to put themselves out there and how to package it. So that part, I was very lucky.
That was the easy part for you.
That was the easy part, was getting, the name, and then just posting about it. And so then Raq the Boat. And then naturally, just from there, my friend Jason was like, hey, I'm going to have a youth social network, and I want you to be the creative piece behind it and essentially be the founder. So RAQVISION, that was just launched on June 1st. And those are interactive chat rooms. So it's essentially having the kids come in and there's a facilitator who is talking about confidence or adversity or mindset, all of these things. I think it's so important for our kids to hear from adults about and learn from their experiences, but do it in a really fun way. So it's not like a classroom, already they're doing school on Zoom. So the last
all day long. Yes.
Yeah. You don't want them to feel like, oh, here we go. Another lecture. No, it's definitely more about interacting and having the kids be able to feel like they have a voice. And it's a safe space in the sense that there's no, it's membership based. So they have their own login. We don't have any like advertising on there, no third party sharing. No, it's none of that. So that they really feel like what they're saying, like none of the calls are recorded. So when they speak in that room, it stays there.
Nice.
Yeah. So we're working on that. We're still kind of like revamping a few things for RAQVISION, but essentially that's what I want to do is just talk to these kids and give them that platform and the voice, really.
Are you reaching these kids through their parents, or how do you find these kids to be members on this platform?
Well, as far as members on the platform, a lot of it is their parents. We are trying to find like brand ambassadors that are that age group that are 17 and under, because we know that if parents say, hey, so-and-so, I want you to be on this platform, most kids are going to be like, wait, if you want me to be on there, no thanks. So they do have to kind of have their own, make their own decision with that.
Yeah.
So it's trying to figure out how to get in front of these kids to see, so that they can see the value of it in it. And it's difficult. Let's be real. They're all just on TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, and they're really accustomed to that's what like social media should be like and the vanity metrics. So then when you're asking them to be in an environment where it's really about community and communication and just like realness, it's a little bit of a like culture shock, if you will, I think.
Yeah, it's like a paradigm shift.
I'm not used to that. I'm used to hiding behind my phone and commenting and liking and not really having to create a connection. And we're trying to do the opposite. We're trying to bring back connection. And I know there are kids that are craving it, because when I talk to kids on Raq the Boat, I was surprised how many teenagers are like so over social media, and they agree. They're like, it is so fake. It isn't real. But they almost feel like they have to do it because everybody else is. So it's like this vicious, cycle of, okay, how do we get them to stop, from this hamster wheel?
Yeah. And also to like disconnect from all of it, like the where it taps into like our potential for becoming addicted to it, right?
Yeah.
The quick moving, the blue light, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then like the crave, I think it creates cravings and all kinds of things. Like I have almost 18, my daughter will be 18 in 1 week, 18 and 15-year-old. And we've had like not enforced, like we're going to make you do a technology cleanse, but we've had suggested technology cleanses during times when we actually have downtime and can go do other things. And it's amazing how supportive that is of their mental well-being and feeling better and all that. So and they don't know how to regulate themselves all the time.
Well, I did it myself. So one of my mentors, he has this thing called no 24. So no social media for 24 hours, but he means like no anything, no TV, no music, no phone, like for 24 hours. And he does it, I think, once a week or something, but I tried it last year. And it was really interesting because I learned a lot about myself and social media, because I did it the day that my daughter had homecoming. And I didn't listen to any music in the car. I didn't put on the TV. I wasn't on any of my social media, but I did have my phone just because, obviously with my kids, like it's important I could at least, if there was an emergency, to have the text, but I wasn't purposely texting people or making phone calls or anything like that.
Right.
When I went to go do pictures with my daughter, I took pictures, but I didn't post them because once again, no social media. And it was so weird, Tracy, not to be able to post the pictures, but I had to sit there in the moment and go, why do I feel like I have to post pictures? Like, what is it? Like deep down, Raquel, why? Like I'm doing the experience with her. Why do I feel like I have to share it to the world and others have to see? I'm like, okay, yes, I felt like my daughter looked really pretty, but there were like really cute pictures of me and her, and she was like overpowering me. So it was more about like, oh, I want people to see like my relationship with my daughter. I want I want it to be like validated that I'm a good mom. Like all of those things that, you don't really want to like listen to, but at the same time, it was really important to me for the psychology of it all to be like, oh my gosh, this is more about wanting to kind of show off than anything else. And that part of it was really powerful. And then not only that, the other thing that was amazing was that it's really like out of sight, out of mind, where I didn't know what anybody else was doing on that Saturday. So I didn't feel the pressure or feel like a loser if I wasn't out because like there'll be weekends where I'm looking and people are at the wineries and the girlfriends and everyone's this and they're hiking and I'm like sitting at home doing nothing. And then that's when you start thinking like, oh my gosh, like, why am I not out? Like, why did I get invited? Like, it's just,
FOMO.
And I'm 46 years old and I'm still having those thoughts. So
like being in a middle school again.
Yeah, it really does make you think like, what is this all about? Like really, truly. So I think it's fantastic for adults to do it too.
Yeah.
I think we like to believe that we're like super cool and we've got this. 24 hours, no social media or music or TV. Oh yeah. It is not easy.
No, it's not easy. I remember at some point, I think it was before I met my now husband, I recognized that I would kind of like reflexively go on Facebook. And there are some benefits for being on Facebook. I've connected with people I think about and whatever. Right. So that's great. Babies and puppies and kittens and all the things that I want to see. And I noticed that I did not feel lonely single until I went on Facebook. And so it created and then reinforced a feeling of loneliness for me. I was very intentionally not dating for a period of time. I was very intentionally just being focused on myself and healing and, taking care of myself, growing my business, being focused on my kids and all the things that I said I wanted to be intentional about. But every time I went on Facebook, I felt like shit.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Like
so I took it off my phone.
And that's kind of like, and I did a post about this yesterday on LinkedIn and it's kind of gone viral. In a sense, so I posted a picture of my daughter and I from homecoming, but it's a candid one because there was a curated one where I was like, we both are sitting there smiling and looking all pretty. And then there was one where she looks like she's almost choking me and she's laughing and I'm laughing because I went to go in and give her a kiss on her cheek. And of course she wasn't having it. So she was like pushing me away, but it's still a fun picture, but that's the picture I posted. And I always am funny on my posts. So at first I wrote like, boys aren't the only ones that have cooties. Apparently moms do too. But the whole point of the post was like, I said, I'd like to share a parenting lesson that I learned these past few years. And the lesson was that that I love my kids with all of my heart and my body and my soul and my whole being. And I know my kids do too. But there's no need for the rest of the world to have to see that, right? Like I was that mom that if I didn't have pictures up on, first or last day of school or their birthdays, or once again, curated like holiday photos, or even like hashtag National Daughters Day and hashtag National Sons Day, I didn't post anything because I knew my kids were going to be like, Mom, take that down, because they wouldn't be happy with the picture anyway. So I was like, I'm not going to post it. But there's something inside you that like, at least for me, I felt like if I don't post those pictures or I don't post about my kids, people are going to think I'm a bad parent. They're not going to see, like, they're going to think like, I don't really care about my kids, or I don't know. I was just like, had those feelings for the longest time. And I remember it wasn't until last year that my kids were like, Mom, why do you have to post pictures of us on like social media? Because it was always like, take a picture. And they're like, Mom, we don't give a crap. Like, why do you have to feel better about yourself by posting? Like, they were the ones that were giving me all that insight of like, Mom, we love you. We know you love us. Like, give it a rest. Like, why? And I was like, oh my gosh, they're right. It's more important how I show up in their life as their mom and be present than anything else. Yeah. And so that's what the post was about. Like, you know what? We think that we have to do, we're like dictated by what everybody else is doing on social media. So then we feel guilty. And then that dictates like how we show up. And I was like, no, I need to show up the way my kids want me to show up.
And we're not immune, right? I think a lot of adults are saying, oh, social media is really bad for kids and teenagers.
Yeah, well then, okay. Then whoever's saying that, like, then why don't you stop posting too?
Seriously. There's a lot of good things, right? Like, I mean, one of the things that I will highlight is like a lot of my guests on this show have found me through the show's Instagram page. And I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
And a few through LinkedIn.
Well, that's
nothing
how I
on
find
Facebook
my
because
kids.
I'm so irritated with Facebook, but like there's good stuff, right? There are ways to use it in a really good way. And, you know, I think you use a really good word here. Like so much of what is posted is like curated.
Yeah.
Right. They've spent time putting on their light reflecting HD makeup, and they have their, you know, you can see my ring light in my glasses here. You have their ring light on, and they have their perfect this and all the filters and the blah, blah, blah. You know, what about, you posted actually like random not great pictures a while ago. I don't remember where, was it on Instagram?
Yeah, I did it on Instagram and LinkedIn.
And your son was like, Mom, what the F are you posting? Which I was like cracking up because my son would probably have that
on
too.
The one where I showed my sweaty armpit.
Oh, sweaty armpit.
Yes,
that's right.
That's I had been dancing and my friend was like, oh my gosh, look at your armpit. Because I had like a gray dress on, like not smart. Wear black if you're going to go out dancing. But yeah.
So guess what? Humans sweat when they move their bodies.
Yeah, I was my God. Have you ever seen a sweaty armpit? Like, it's really not that disgusting. But my whole point of it was because there's, you know, how there's trendy hashtags on Instagram. Yeah. So one of the trendy hashtags is Thursday thirst trap or thirst trap Thursday or whatever. And thirst trap meaning like it's a sexy picture.
Yeah.
Right. So all these women or men are putting these like sexy posts and doing the hashtag. So I was like, well, this is
here we go.
Look
at me putting out.
Right. But yeah, my son was just like, what the F? But it's funny because his comment got way more likes and like comments than my actual picture did. It
was so funny. You could feel his like, what are you doing, Mom?
My daughter
you could feel the horror.
Oh gosh. My daughter goes, Mom. All my friends like screenshot and sent it to me with like my son's comment on there too. But like, he was like, I was so done with everybody like texting me the picture of you. I'm like, well, they don't have to follow me, but isn't that funny? Like what causes a stir? Like the fact that I did something that is like, like, wait, how, like, wow, like you're willing to put yourself out there in that way that with a sweaty armpit, like, like blasphemy. Like that's what's really
that you did, right? Like the old, don't never let them see you sweat.
Yeah, it's like if I had done like a pretty picture of me, it wouldn't have mattered.
You looked like you'd had a great night.
Oh, I did. It was like from 2008. My friend, one of my best friends from high school, he has that in his phone as my contact picture. So anytime I call him, it's my sweaty. He's so like, funny. That's the best picture of you ever. But yeah, it's just funny how it caused a stir because I didn't give a shit.
Yeah. Well, are you finding in the talks that you're having with the kids and in RAQVISION that are the kids starting to come around a little bit to that, to just kind of be like, okay, maybe all this stuff doesn't actually matter as much as I thought it did?
I think so.
It's pretty new. So you're probably still kind of watching some progression.
Well, I did have a young girl, she's 15, and I met her through LinkedIn. She reached out to me. So it's not
on
just
LinkedIn, a 15-year-old? I love it.
It's not just the parents. I've had 15, 16, 17-year-olds reach out to me on their own asking if they could be on the show. Aww. And she was so sweet because she had seen me on something else. I think I did like a talk on personal branding for a nonprofit, and that's where she found me. And then she came and reached out to me. But she had said, she's like, you know, us teens gravitate towards someone like you, Raquel, because you are just like so real and you can tell that you really do want to give us a voice and help us. So the fact that she sees that, like, that means that like, okay, there are kids that really appreciate like people being themselves. And then that means it gives them permission to be themselves. And I think that's what's important. And that's why for me, I tell a lot of adults, like, we need to walk the walk, because these kids are still feeling the pressure because we're still also putting ourselves out there in a certain way.
Yeah.
They
model our behavior. I mean, anything that we see that we don't like, we need to turn the mirror around.
Yeah. So if I'm seeing they're trying to empower these kids, but I can't feel empowered myself, like, then I'm essentially a fraud, I think. I mean, that's just how I see it, where if I can't put myself out there with no makeup on or looking, kind of not my best and be okay with it, then how can I empower these kids to really own who they are and to be comfortable with who they are and on all of that if I can't be that. So that's why I try to do it also to empower other people, other adults. I mean, that's why I do a lot of it as well, especially on LinkedIn, kind of like, hey, if I can put myself out there in this way, why can't you? Like, why not? And
we use the word authenticity a lot. We use that word. Yeah. Right. I mean, that's like the buzz.
I know, which I try not to use because of it.
I know, but I know.
I know it's so hard not to not use that word.
So being real, like, I love that you said something about, this is about realness. It's about connecting and making, having a real connection and communication and being ourselves, talking about being vulnerable, having adults share their fears and share the journey they've gone through, I think is super empowering for kids. Because kids can smell BS from miles away. Yeah, they can read it on us. So if we're not being real with them, they'll know it. They may not be able to articulate what they are picking up on. Although today's kids are really pretty. I mean, the way how my kids will say things, I'm like, wow, I didn't figure that stuff out till I was like 40.
Super insightful. Like I feel like younger generations, like we don't give them enough credit on the fact that like so many are just really self-aware and insightful.
Yeah. And we can learn a lot from them, but they'll see it, right? They'll see it from a mile away. So what you're doing, I think you're supporting a lot of adults too by doing that, right? Like just being who you are. I loved your silly, the not the best photos, one eye half open or whatever, the ones that we don't predate digital,
my teeth.
Right? Sweaty armpits and, weird angles and all that stuff. I mean, it's funny because my kids like use Snapchat with their friends. And my daughter intentionally takes like ridiculously bad photos of herself all the time. So does my
daughter. Like, I love it. Like even on her yesterday, like I love that she has like that humor like that I do. So she had posted two things on Instagram, which I thought was great. So the other day, a while ago, she had said something like, these pics are definitely going to get me verified. And you know how Instagram, when you have the check, you're verified, it means like you're, I guess a pseudo celebrity. Yeah, you're in. So there were like some cute pictures of her at the beach with her girlfriends. But then at the end, it was like this awful like picture that she took of like her forehead with her eyeballs. But she goes, last pic is definitely going to get me verified. So I love that she like put that on there joking about herself. And then yesterday for homecoming, same thing. She's like, she put some pictures and they're really cute. And then at the end, it was a picture of her after she'd gotten her wisdom teeth taken out. She had like the gauze in her mouth and she took a selfie while we were in the car because my arm was in the car. But I love that she like was willing to also be like, hey, look, I look really cute here, but look at like,
look at me 3 weeks ago.
Like, exactly. Right after. And like having her do that, I'm like, she gets it. She gets that. Like, you gotta you can look pretty sometimes, but sometimes you're not only gonna look pretty and sometimes, and it's okay. And it's like, I love that she shows both.
Yeah.
Every time. Like don't get it twisted, people.
I may have been born this way, but I don't wake up this way every day.
And she's just here in high school. And it also like, it shows that she has a sense of confidence and that's what's so important, right? So like, even with your daughter, the fact that she'll like Snapchat, like all these crazy pictures, it shows that she's like, I don't care. And there's something to be said about that, because at that age, there's no freaking way I would have posted pictures like that. I'll tell you right now, I was so insecure. Oh my gosh, there's no way.
Yeah. It's a very different, I think there's still societal pressure, but I believe that we're becoming more aware and our kids are showing us where we need to become more aware. Like, I feel like I've learned a lot from my children about all kinds of things, body image, body positivity, acceptance, and, where our blind spots are, hidden bias that was just handed right over to us that we never questioned, and, things like that, that they're seeing the world differently. I think there's a lot to learn from our youth, and we, I think, we don't give them enough credit for how wise they are, as you were saying earlier. And I think we also need to remember to listen to them and let their voices be heard. I mean, there's shocking statistics on the rise in depression, anxiety. And I just read that suicide is the number one cause of death for teenagers, or number two. It's in the top.
Well, I know that it was number two for a while. Maybe it creeped up to number one. I don't know, but it definitely is in the top
up there.
Two. It's definitely up there. Yeah. And it's not getting any better. It's only getting worse.
Terrifying. As a parent with one of my children struggles with depression, and some of the suicidal ideation was in there kind of in the beginning stages. And I've learned actually that sometimes the ideation isn't as scary as we think it is, right? Not that we don't take it seriously, but understanding that there was a period of time when they were thinking about life would be better if I weren't in it, is like, wow, because we're not perfect, but we've got a great relationship. We have a really stable home environment. We have, a good lifestyle and all the things that we think are going to do it. But depression is such a big fat liar. Struggling with mental health tells us all kinds of lies, and so it would have been easy. And I think this is something my parents would have said, but you've got a great life. Why are you complaining? Right. And I was listening to my son saying how he felt and how he felt about himself and kind of how he viewed things. And I was like, okay, I don't really know what to do with this except to tell you that I'm here and I'm listening and I want to support you. And if you had a sore throat, I would take you to the doctor. So I think, in this respect, this is outside of my wheelhouse in terms, I'll go and learn how to support you, but I think we need to bring, proper care in here. And, thank God for therapy, because I think it turned around a lot of that for him, and, medicine eventually for him, and different things. Like, these are the things that we need to give our kids a voice. I think I could have missed some of the signs, and God forbid that he would have really kind of gone down that rabbit hole and thought that's what he needed to do.
No, and that's so important. And I'm so glad that you had said that, because for me, it was different, where I got to the point where I did attempt to take my life, because I was like, what's the point? No one's going to miss me, all of those things. And granted, I was at college, so I wasn't at home, but I was already going to therapy. I was already on, so my parents already knew that I was not in the best mental state, but they never, ever asked me anything or asked me how I was doing. They were in denial. They are still in denial, to be honest. But, so for me, I didn't feel like I had them to go to, I didn't think that they would care. And, to this day, I don't talk to them about my mental health. If I'm not in a good place, I don't tell them, because I know they're not going to really say anything. They're not going to be like, we're here for you. We'll listen, because what makes me think they're going to be here for me now when they weren't there for me in the worst of it. Now I'm in a good place, but yeah, I have my moments. I still have a day or two where I'm in bed and I struggle a little bit, but I give myself grace. But there's something to be said when you feel like you can't turn to your parents, or your parents don't really even bother questioning things. They have yet to ask me, why do you think you got to that dark place, or what makes you think that we didn't want you around, or that you weren't worthy? it's not that they don't care. It's just that they don't know how to, I guess, maybe deal with their feelings about it. And all of those things. So I can't fault them for it. It makes me sad, that we've never addressed it. And here I'm 46 years old and I talk about it all the time. And my brother struggles from mental health as well. So yeah, it's just, I think as parents, it's really so important, as uncomfortable as it is, believe me, you're better off being uncomfortable and helping your child.
Yes.
Than the opposite. And I think that's what it is my parents are just so uncomfortable for them and they just can't handle it. And there's a bit of narcissism there with both my parents, unfortunately. So it's more about
and I think sometimes we attach our success as a parent onto random weird stuff about our kids, right? If my child is depressed or has anxiety or ADHD or whatever, that's a reflection on me as a parent. And it's something that I'm aware of. I check regularly. And so generationally, I think each generation becomes a little bit more self-aware and does a little bit better. And, and so similarly, my parents didn't, I can't even imagine them asking me, how are you doing emotionally? Like, even to this day, I can't imagine it, and they're more aware now than they were.
Yeah. Well, my dad's a doctor
30 years ago.
So he's a doctor and his patients adore him and he has great bedside manner, but it's always different when it's like your own child or your own, it's very different. And, like I used to go to my mom's best friend when I was younger. Even when I got divorced, I remember reaching out to her because she was a social worker and then she was head of like the mental health department in San Diego County. So she knew what she was doing. And I remember always going to her. And luckily I knew there was like, she never said anything to my parents, but so she was that adult for me where that's where I have to remind myself, like, Raquel, you had someone that you could talk to. And she wasn't family and she was still adult and it's okay. Cause I think that's another thing too, is that I think because unfortunately with so much that has happened over time with sexual abuse and pedophiles and internet and creepers and, all those things, I think as parents, we tend to kind of like, well, we don't want our kids to talk to any adults because we automatically kind of like go to that place of, what do they really want? Like, why do they want to talk to my kid? Like, why are they so interested? And I think that's like been really tough for a lot of us parents. But at the same time, it's really important that kids still have an adult figure that they feel that they can be comfortable with besides their teacher and their parents. Like it's okay. Like if you really talk to your kids about it in a way where they understand like, okay, this is someone that I get to talk to, not like, oh, they're an adult and they like, what do they want? I don't know. Like, I just think that it's okay. It's healthy for our kids. That's why when I talk to these kids after a lot of times, and I always inform the parents, I said, hey, I just let your child know that if they feel that they want to talk to someone, that I'm here for them. And every time most of the parents are like, that's great. Thank you. Because there are some of those kids that I do take it offline where they feel like they can text me once in a blue moon or we could just get on a call. So for me, that's really important. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's enough kids that have someone like that.
Yeah. And I think we adults need to really focus on that, right? We have a crisis of self-harm and all of these things that are going on. And we talk about it and we swirl around in our pearl clutching fears, but we don't really do much about it. Right. And I think that's there. What's interesting is on this show, there have been several episodes where I've had conversations with people about their own mental health struggles or with maybe someone in their family or whatever. And it's a piece of the puzzle that is part of being human. And I also think that a lot of entrepreneurs who have struggles with, if it's ADHD type stuff or depression, anxiety, easy overwhelm, all that, kinds of things that we struggle with, all of us probably, but it seems to be that a lot of entrepreneurs have found a way to start their business either because they want to provide something that supports other people, much like what you're doing, or because they need a workaround for their own mental well-being.
Yeah.
And staying in a corporate environment or in some other work environment is not the healthy environment for them. So I think these conversations need to happen more often. I think it's become very sort of popular to talk about mental health, but then it's still a little bit taboo, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's like, well, they're depressed or they have some kind of, I don't know what, schizophrenic, sort of paranoia, things like that, well, that's somebody else's issue. Right. And so there's still a little bit of like, there must be something wrong, or maybe we just think that. And so we're projecting that onto ourselves and others. But I think these conversations are just so important. We need to normalize the full spectrum of health in physical, emotional, and mental health. There's a whole broad spectrum of that. And we need to do that for ourselves. So we really critically need to do it for our children. So I think the service that you're providing, obviously, just a quick caveat, you're not providing mental health services, but you're providing a safe space for kids to come and learn like real life stuff that a lot of us didn't learn. I mean, I swear I didn't really pull my head out of my backside fully until I was 40.
Well, and most adults, like when we were growing up, most adults weren't going to own up to the fact that they were like struggling as a parent or struggling in their business or struggling just in general, or that they make mistakes. Like, I think that's the difference too, is that more and more adults are willing to be vulnerable and share. Like, for instance, one of the rooms for RAQVISION, we call them rock rooms, but for one of the rock rooms is Justin Guarini from American Idol. And he is super transparent. Like, he's willing to talk about all the failures and about the fact that he had no idea that his record label dropped him until he happened to be at home in his like mansion in Beverly Hills watching Saturday Night Live. And they did a skit on how he was dropped by his label. And he was like, what? And the fact that like millions of people found out in that moment at the same time he did, like, for him, that just was, I mean, he said he was depressed and didn't leave his home for like weeks because it was like, but the fact that he's willing to talk about and how important that was and what he learned from it and how he overcame it, like all of those things, or like if he messed up on stage, like what did he do? I love that, because that's the thing, is too many adults, I think, feel like, especially parents, oh, if we show our vulnerabilities or the fact that we like don't know what we're doing, then our kids aren't going to listen to us, or they're going to lose respect for us. And I think it's the opposite.
I do too.
I think you will gain so much more respect from your kids. I know I have. I know when I own up to what I've done wrong, I've apologized to my kids many a times. And it doesn't make me like a weak person. It just is like, yeah, you know what? You're right. Like I'm trying to figure this crap out too. Like, parenting's not easy. And yeah, sometimes I'm going to make a mistake, but I'm going to own it and I'm going to be accountable for it. And I'm going to try to do better. And that's what I tell them too. I'm like, listen, thank you for sharing with me. I'm going to try to do better. And they really appreciate that. Like, cause there've been times where, they hate hearing about me and like what I do business wise. Like, they just don't like to hear it. They feel like it's just me talking about myself. And I have to respect that. So I'm like, okay. But I also explained to them why I do that. Like, I told them, I said, listen, the reason why I talk about what I'm doing and I share all of that is because I want you guys to be proud of me. And like, I never felt that from my parents. I never felt heard. So in a way, it's me, it's my own insecurity. And I'm putting that on you because I love you so much. And I want you guys to like see that. And they're like, Mom, we love you, but we really just don't care. Like, it's not that we don't care about you. We just don't care about that part of your life or whatever. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Like, I can't be upset with them for that. Like, they're young. They don't care. So then their
focus is very centered to where they're at right now.
Exactly. And so I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to honor that. So then now when I talk to them, I really don't share but they'll ask me sometimes, like my son will be like, hey Mom, so how's it going with the job search, or how's it going with your business? I let them come to me. And it's funny how many times they do come to me now that I've backed off completely in a lot of ways. So yeah, I'm learning a lot, but yeah, I think it's really important that our kids see that we're not perfect.
Mm-hmm. And I think, again, kids will model behavior. So they will model our behavior, whether we like it or not. So when we can be transparent and real with them and own our mistakes and apologize, real apologies.
Yeah.
And one of the things, it's like one of the mantras in our house, the best apology is changed behavior, but that doesn't mean you don't verbally make an apology or write a letter. If that's a better way to do it, it needs to still, show that you have remorse, but then really it's about making a change. So I love that you say, like, I'm going to try to do better, now that I'm aware of this. Right. And it's a huge service that you're providing for your own children, because they're going to go out into the world better equipped to handle their mistakes, to own their responsibility, and to do better.
Yeah. But I think a lot has to do with me talking to everybody else's kids. Like, that was one thing. I'm like, if I'm talking to other people's kids and I'm listening to them and I'm giving them permission and the space to do it, like, I have to be able to do that with my own kids. So it really made me reflect on how I was showing up as a parent with my own kids. Cause really, like, it did put a mirror up to me. And I love that. Like, I love that I got a huge lesson from this, and I myself grew from it as well. Like, I think that's so important that we are willing to continue to learn and grow as well, like, no matter what. And that's the thing. And it's interesting because, how you mentioned with entrepreneurship, a lot of people go out onto their own because they're the corporate world and the 9 to 5 and the stress. But at the same time, as an entrepreneur, it is really difficult too. Like, the stress there and the hustle and the grind and trying to make things work. Like, I feel like we don't talk enough about that part of it. Like everybody leaves the corporate world to be their own boss, to have their own schedule, to be able to kind of do their own thing. But that there's a price to be paid with that. And that was something that we had talked about, where I realized that, like, okay, as an entrepreneur, I'm still not making money. I might be doing what I love and passionate about, and, but the reality is haven't been able to monetize it. So now I'm going back into the corporate world, and because I need that stability so that I can continue to do what I'm doing. But I think that we need to be better about showing that it's a struggle either way. Like one isn't easier than the other, really. And the mental health part is everywhere.
Absolutely. And, before we started recording, we were talking about this a bit. And the thing is like, okay, so I'm doing what I do for a living. I refer to Maslow's hierarchy of needs a lot. And if our basic needs aren't being met, like if we're at risk of losing the roof over our head, or it's a possibility because now we can't pay our mortgage or our rent or whatever, that is not a place that's going to lead us into some kind of enlightenment.
Right.
We might learn something from it, but it's not going to give us the freedom to be creative and to come up with solutions, because we're in a, like this scarcity mode where, it's like just survival, and survival is not enough. We have to be in a position where we can think clearly when we need to think clearly and make good, solid decisions based on what's possible, rather than the fear of what might happen or not happen, and all of those things. And so I really applaud you, one, for bringing it up while we're recording, and two, for actually doing it to fill the gap. I think that the world of entrepreneurship, as we see it on social media, there's a lot of stories about, I sold everything and I moved into my VW van and I traveled around the world making millions of dollars. And that's a load of shit. I mean, every once in a while it works out that way. Or they're super young and they didn't have any other responsibilities, and it was okay to couch surf for a while. But, for people who don't want to live that way, that's okay. There's no guarantee that a corporate job will provide you stability for a long time, but for the time being, you're going to be making enough money and then some to meet your needs, to save, to put yourself in a better position. You've got a kid going off to college next year. That's another expense that's coming onto your radar. And I truly believe that when you meet these needs of yours, your financial needs, your basic needs, plus, that it will help you open up creative ways to monetize this business, the two sort of streams that you've got going, to start to provide for you in a meaningful way. Maybe even, hopefully, over time, replace your income and put you in a position to go full-time into that. But I think this is an important piece for our listeners to hear. If you're in the beginning stages, or not even beginning stages, you might just be at a place where you haven't turned the kind of profit that you need, or you're not making the kind of money that you want to be making or need to be making. Don't live in desperation. Desperation does not create good choices, and it doesn't put us on the path.
It's paralyzing. Success. I know for me, it's been paralyzing these last several weeks, knowing that I need to find a job because I'm not able to, so I'm kind of like at the tail end, right? Like there comes a point where the money runs out, and like the money ran out, and that feeling of desperation, that feeling of stress, like it's paralyzed me to continue to do all these other things. Like I should be still, trying to get kids on Raq the Boat and the RAQVISION. But if anything, like it's been the opposite for me.
Yeah.
And that's been my struggle. So you're right. Like knowing that I have that stability, then I feel like that creative flow will open up again. Like I've blocked it because it's amazing what stress will do.
Absolutely.
When you allow it to take control. And I don't want it to take control, but I think it's natural for all of us to kind of get into that state sometimes. And then, it doesn't do us any good.
Mm-mm. No, I think you're very wise. And I want our listeners to hear this, right? This is a podcast about mindset reset specific to entrepreneurs. And we're sold similar to any other social media. We're, sort of sold these highlight reels, but let's talk truth. Anything that looks like an overnight success was probably several years or more in the making, chipping away behind the scenes, toiling away. And, I don't like hustle and grind. I think hustle and glide is a better way to go. So sometimes, right. And I borrowed that from somebody else, but we hustle when it makes sense. Like when we can see a clear path or a mostly clear path in that direction, that's a great time to hustle. And glide when maybe we need a break, or it's not like all or nothing. It's kind of like there's a time to glide. It's like taking a weekend off. or, deciding very clearly that you're going to stop working by 5 or 6 PM or whatever it is, but that glide is what helps open up our creativity and like release, even as I say glide, I like feel my shoulders releasing tension and my whole body kind of
Which is even the visual part, like when you see visually got like the word glide, like there's something about it where it's just like, I don't know how to explain it, but
I mean, it's like if you've ever tried ice skating, roller skating, rollerblading, riding a bike, you're not paddling all out all the time. You'll run out of steam. I think this is the same thing in business. And so you're just very wise. I think you're still looking at your business model and finding a way to monetize this in a meaningful way. And I think the way it's structured right now relies on volume, and that takes time to build.
Yeah.
You might change it. It might become something different down the road. But for right now, from what I understand, when we talked about your business model before, you'll need volume in order to be able to pay your bills with this business. That's okay. That's just part of the business model, right? So until then, taking care of your well-being, including your financial well-being, is imperative. You cannot, this is another mindset piece that I bring in a lot. When I used to teach wellness seminars, I said this all the time. I felt like a broken record, but like, we cannot give from an empty cup. We have to fill up our own cup. And you're the sole breadwinner. So you got to bring in the bread. That's just
I know, believe I have my moments. I'm like, can I
maybe I need
someone?
a sugar daddy? I
know. There's someone that could at least, help with the load, but
and then you're like, that just sounds kind of yucky. So no thanks. I'll go out, it's like, I'm a strong, independent woman. And you're like, could someone save me, please?
I know. But you know what? It's like, I also think about that in my head, because it's like, at the end of the day, I'm going to feel prouder of myself knowing that I was able to like do it without, having to, I guess, kind of lean on or rely on someone. Not that there's nothing wrong with that, but for me, just being that I've relied on so many people my entire life, that like, I know that I need this for myself too, for growth and just, I just need it for me as well.
Well, I think you're setting such a great example for your children, for the kids who come on to the scene with you, both for Raq the Boat and for RAQVISION. You and I will stay in touch because we will, but I would love to, revisit when things have kind of picked up and taken off and have you come back on the show and be able to share this journey, because it's really a journey. We have people all over the map in terms of industry and stage of business on this show. And I think that, you're in the very beginning stages, and this is as real and raw as it gets, peeps. This is,
and I just turned 46. Like I'm pushing 50. Soon.
I'm closer to 50 than you are.
Yeah, but like that's another thing too, is that it a lot of times it takes a really long time, but I feel young, and I still feel like I have so much ahead of me. So it's a nice feeling to know that, maybe number wise, it might sound a little like scary to some people, like, oh my gosh, you're 46 and you're just figuring out.
But Colonel Sanders was in his 80s when KFC took off. I'm just saying, it's never too late. It's just never too late. And I think,
don't they say like most billionaires, they become billionaires in like their 50s? I think that's like
possibly
what happens. Yeah. So it takes time, and that's okay.
And we just need to remember that. Right. And the perfect time to start is just before you think you're ready. So you have started something, and taken a big risk and a leap of faith. And I know that it's paying off for you emotionally. And I know I have a very strong sense that it will pay off for you financially as well. It just takes time. It just, it doesn't have to take years and years and years and years, but you have to play with your model a little bit until it starts to pick up momentum and go. And that takes time. So in the meantime, you can seed, you can finance it a little bit by earning money outside of your business. And there's a lot of different things you can do. So I say, my hat is off to you.
Trusting the process. Thank you. Yeah. I'm trusting that this is all evolving the way it should. And that's that's just my journey, my life. And for whatever reason, like I have the obstacles that I do, or maybe I'm not ready right now. And there's a reason for it. Maybe that's why I'm not able to monetize it yet. Maybe because sometimes I think, because I'm not very smart with my money. So that I think like, okay, maybe this is like showing me that I got to get smart with my money. I got to like stop, spending it on certain things and really be responsible. And then maybe that's when the money will come in, because then at least I won't like just throw it all away or be that person that's like, oh, I need this handbag or these shoes. Like I've come to realize I don't need any of that. So I also truly believe like there's a reason why.
And that's an interesting, so we could go off on a tangent about this. So I'll just plant the seed. Women especially have been socialized to believe that we're not good with money, even down to like the reason why our pockets and our pants aren't real pockets and men's are.
Oh my
husband can fit his whole phone in his front pocket of his pants plus his wallet.
Like,
and keys.
yeah, ours are like sewn.
And it goes back. I mean, it goes back to days when women weren't allowed to have bank accounts and things like that. So we've been conditioned for a long time that we're not good with money. So there's all kinds of stuff we can do with money mindset, but there's actually, I'm going to go ahead and plug a couple of books here, and I didn't write them. One is We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rodgers. Fantastic book. Okay. So good. Really super, one of the most empowering books I've read ever.
About that. I'm going to write it.
Really, really good. We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rodgers. And the other is, I haven't read all the Badass series, but I've heard someone reference the You're a Badass at Making Money in a podcast recently, someone who I know, like, and trust. And so I just picked that up. My husband and I actually are reading it together. And it's really interesting because so much of it is about mindset and what we've been conditioned and where we've picked up these messages about different things. So
yeah, I know I've been super conditioned when it comes to money.
Oh my gosh. Every male, female, rich, poor, anything in between. We've all reached money is such a weird subject. So I invite you to read those two books.
Okay. No, I'm going to.
They're so good.
And order them.
Yeah, they're so good. And to our listeners, if this resonates, and I've never met a person who hasn't, if they're in a great place with their relationship with money, it's because they've worked at it. Everybody else has had, that I know, myself included, have these weird, funky messages and crap that we don't even understand about money. This will help resolve a lot of it for you. It's a good time for you to be reading these.
Perfect.
Yes. So good. My recommendations. So I would love to share with our listeners where they can come find out more about what you're doing. Because I don't know all of our demographic of our listeners, but a good number of people I know have kids. So I think that it would be great for them to know where they could send their kids and they can share some of this. I'm sure that your mindset and your vision and your mission for what you're doing is going to resonate with a lot of parents. So where can we find you and how can we support you?
With social media, I'm on LinkedIn. So Raquel Borras. And then on Instagram, I'm Raquel.Borras. And we also have a RAQVISION Instagram. So it's just RAQVISION. So at RAQVISION. And then I have Raq the Boat, which is on YouTube. So it's RAQ the Boat. So if you can subscribe to that, that'd be fantastic, because that's one of the things I'm trying to monetize, but that takes a while when it comes to YouTube. And then there's the actual RAQVISION website, which is www.raqvision.tv. And you can go check out the website, and it'll give you a whole explanation of what it is that we do and who's involved and everything. And I think that's essentially, you can find me in those places. But
perfect. We'll share all those links in the show notes.
Yeah, reach out to me if you think that you might have a child yourself or someone else's kid that might want to have a conversation with me on Raq the Boat. That'd be great, because I am always looking to talk to different kids 17 and under, and they don't have to have anything in particular. Like, it's funny how many people have asked me what the criteria is. I'm like, there's none. Every kid is special. Every kid is special in their own way. And I've had conversations about video games.
I love
just because that's what the kid wants to talk about. Like, it really doesn't have to be that they're doing something, spectacular and starting a nonprofit or writing a book. Like, it's just giving them a voice, period.
Being a human. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. I love it. Well, I applaud you for taking this huge leap of faith. I think working with kids is a special calling. A very special calling, and we need it, and we need you. So to our listeners, check it out, support her in any way you can. For people who have kids, who know other people who have kids, send them over to check it out. Because I've seen a couple of your interviews on Raq the Boat, and they're freaking adorable. One, And it's really, really sweet to watch you interact with them. You have this, just as who you are as a human, you have this brightness about you, and it's like dialed up so much when you're talking with the kids. Like I really can see and sense that.
Love it. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, you're very much in your zone of genius and in your, in the right space. And so, I just wish you the best of success. I know if there's any other way that we can support you, please let us know, and we'll just keep the good stuff going forward. This is going places.
I appreciate it so much.
You're welcome. Do you have any parting wisdom you'd like to share with our listeners? It can be really anything.
I think for me, a lot of it is just trusting myself. I think, there's so many of us that we look to other outside sources to kind of tell us what to do or what we're supposed to be. And I think a lot of times we ignore that inner voice. And it wasn't until I really listened to myself and that voice that I realized, like, this is what I love doing and this is where I belong. And I think sometimes we just, we're so busy that we forget to just sit and quiet all the outside noise and just listen.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
Really, it's all about listening. Listen
to ourselves and to the kids, right? I love it. And not the inner critic. Tell that person to shut up.
Exactly.
Thanks for coming in the car with me. I'm going to drop you off at the bus stop. Bye. Oh my gosh. Well, as always, it's a real pleasure to speak with you. And I'm just so thankful to you for coming on the show. I think there's a lot of good nuggets in here. I love going back and re-listening. I can't wait to re-listen to this episode and make sure that we draw out the fine points. Yeah. Well, that's what we do. Right. But this is the thing, is that there's so much good stuff in there, and bringing a real person onto the show to share, the up, down, and everything in between. Right. Yeah. The good, bad, and the ugly of all of it, I think, is what this is all about. It's really, my intention is to share our stories with our listeners and create a space that doesn't feel like a deserted island where we're all there, stranded on our own, but we're actually all in this together, even if we don't know each other face to face. So I think this is a great way to do that. So I really appreciate you coming on and just being so open and real with us. So thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Entrepreneur Mindset Reset. If you liked what you heard, be sure to click the subscribe button so you'll never miss a show. Please leave us a review and tell your friends about us so more people can hear the valuable information we share in each episode. We look forward to hearing from you and celebrating your success.